The morning shift had just started on the bridge of the UES Wanderer when the alarms began screaming. Captain Sarah Chen looked up from her coffee cup and sighed. Another day, another problem in the middle of nowhere? What is it this time, Rodriguez? She called to her first officer. Commander Maria Rodriguez was bent over the sensor display, her face showing confusion. Captain, we have incoming ships, big ones. Really big ones. Chen walked over to look at the screen. 5 massive ships were moving toward their small convoy of 3 human vessels. The ships were sleek and silver, each one easily 10 times the size of the Wanderer. They looked expensive and dangerous. Well, that's new, Chen said, taking another sip of coffee. Any idea who they are? Getting something on communications now, said Lieutenant Park from the comm station. They're demanding we respond immediately. Chen raised an eyebrow. Demanding? How rude. Put them through. The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall, blue-skinned alien in what looked like a military uniform. The creature had 4 arms, glowing yellow eyes, and enough metals on his chest to stop a bullet. He looked very serious and very angry. Primitive vessels. The alien spoke in perfect English, though his voice sounded like he was talking through a translator. I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. You have entered Imperial space without permission. Chen looked around the bridge at her crew. They all seemed as confused as she felt. Imperial space? When did that happen? The Admiral's eyes narrowed. This sector has belonged to the Empire for over 2,000 years. All species must submit to Imperial authority or face destruction. Rodriguez whispered, Captain, their weapons are powered up. Those are some serious guns they're pointing at us. Chen nodded but didn't look worried. She had seen worse things than angry aliens with big ships. Admiral Vextar, was it? I'm Captain Chen of the United Earthship Wanderer. We're just passing through on our way to the Kepler system. We didn't know anyone owned this empty piece of space. Ignorance is not an excuse, Vextar said, his forearms crossing in front of him. You will submit to Imperial authority immediately. Prepare to be boarded and your ships claimed in the name of the Empire. That's when Chen started laughing. It started as a small chuckle, but quickly grew into full belly laughter. She had to put down her coffee cup before she spilled it. The bridge crew looked at her like she had lost her mind, but they knew their captain well enough to trust her judgment. Oh my, Chen said, wiping tears from her eyes. Oh, that's good. That's really good. Admiral Vextar looked confused. In his 300 years of service, no species had ever laughed at an Imperial ultimatum. You find our demands amusing? I'm sorry, Chen said, still giggling. It's just, you're so serious about it all. The big ships, the fancy uniform, the whole submit or die speech. It's like something out of a bad movie. The Admiral's yellow eyes began to glow brighter, which probably meant he was getting angrier. You mock the power of the Empire? We have conquered 700 worlds. We command fleets of 10,000 ships. Our technology is beyond your understanding. Chen's laughter died down to a grin. Oh, I'm sure it is. Your ships are very pretty. Very shiny. Did you polish them this morning? Rodriguez covered her mouth to hide a smile. Lieutenant Park had turned away from his station to watch the show. Even the usually serious Chief Engineer Patel was shaking his head with amusement. You dare insult the Imperial fleet? Vextar's voice was rising. These are the most advanced warships in the galaxy. I'm not insulting them, Chen said reasonably. I'm just saying they look very clean. Almost too clean. Like they've never actually been in a real fight. The truth was the human ships looked terrible compared to the Imperial vessels. The Wanderer was covered in patches, dents, and what looked like duct tape holding some panels in place. The paint was faded, the hull was scarred, and there were definitely some parts that weren't originally designed to go where they were now attached. The other 2 human ships, the Defiance and the Stubborn Mule, looked even worse. The Defiance had what appeared to be an entire asteroid mining platform bolted to its side. The Stubborn Mule looked like it had been built from spare parts of a dozen different ships. Your vessels are primitive, Vextar observed, probably thinking he was stating the obvious. They appear to be held together with... What is that substance? Duct tape mostly, Chen said cheerfully. Some superglue, a few prayers, and good old human stubbornness. Works great. The Admiral stared at her. You admit your technology is inferior? Oh, absolutely, Chen nodded. We're probably using tech you guys threw away 1,000 years ago. But you know what? It works for us. Then you understand you cannot resist Imperial might, Vextar said, seeming to regain his confidence. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Chen's grin got wider. Deaths? Oh, Admiral, you really don't understand humans at all, do you? What is there to understand? You are a weak species with weak ships. You will submit or be destroyed. That's where you're wrong, Chen said, settling back into her captain's chair. See, humans have this funny thing about being told what to do by strangers. We don't like it much. She gestured to Rodriguez, who opened a channel to the other human ships. Captain Williams, Captain Okafor, you guys hearing this? Two voices came through the comm system. Captain Williams of the Defiance sounded amused. Every word, Sarah. This guy's got a real stick up his, well, whatever aliens have up there. Captain Okafor of the Stubborn Mule was laughing too. My grandmother used to get madder than this when I tracked mud in her house. At least she had a good reason. Admiral Vextar looked from one screen to another as all three human captains continued to treat his ultimatum like a joke. You're not taking this seriously. Should we be? Chen asked. I mean, you show up in our neighborhood, tell us it's your neighborhood now, and expect us to just hand over our ships because you ask nicely. That's not really how humans work. This is not a request, Vextar shouted.
This is the command of the Galactic Empire.
Yeah, about that, Chen said, leaning forward. See, we're from Earth. And on Earth we have this saying, come and take it. The Admiral's translator seemed to have trouble with the phrase. Come and take what? Our ships, our freedom, our coffee, Chen shrugged. Basically anything you think you can just demand from us. Your coffee? Very important, Rodriguez added seriously. We haven't had our second cup yet. You really don't want to fight humans who haven't had enough coffee. Vextar was beginning to look frustrated. This was not how these encounters usually went. Most species either surrendered immediately or tried to run away. None of them ever laughed. You are either very brave or very stupid, he finally said. Probably stupid, Chen admitted. But we're the kind of stupid that's too dumb to know when we're beaten. Then you choose death. We choose to finish our coffee first, Chen said, raising her cup in a toast. Then we'll see what happens. Admiral Vexitar cut the communication, leaving the bridge of the Wanderer in silence for a moment. Captain, Rodriguez said quietly, they really do have some big guns on those ships. Chen nodded, taking another sip of coffee. Yep, pretty scary looking. And there are 5 of, them and only 3 of us, good point, and they're part of some big galactic empire that's conquered hundreds of worlds and probably thousands by now. Chen agreed. Rodriguez waited for more explanation. When none came, she asked, so what's the plan? Chen grinned and finished her coffee. Same plan as always, Maria. We're going to show them that humans don't scare easily. She stood up and walked to the center of the bridge. All right, people. Looks like we're about to have some excitement. Rodriguez, get me a line to Earth Command. Park, start recording everything for the history books. Patel, make sure the engines are ready for whatever crazy thing I'm about to do. What about the aliens? Park asked. Chen looked at the screen showing the 5 massive Imperial warships moving closer to their small convoy. Let them come, she said. It's about time someone taught the galaxy that humans don't back down from bullies, no matter how big their ships are. Outside, the Imperial fleet moved into attack formation, their weapons charging with deadly energy. Inside the 3 human ships, crews prepared for what would become the most important battle in galactic history, and Captain Sarah Chen couldn't stop smiling. Admiral Vextar paced back and forth on his command bridge, all 4 of his arms moving in agitation. In 3 centuries of service to the Empire, he had never encountered a species quite like these humans. They had laughed at him, actually laughed at the might of the Imperial fleet. Admiral, his weapons officer reported, all ships are in position. The primitive vessels are holding their ground. Vextar looked at the tactical display. The 3 human ships sat there like they were waiting for something interesting to happen. They hadn't raised shields, hadn't powered weapons, hadn't even tried to run away. They were just sitting there. Sir, his science officer added, I'm reading some very strange energy signatures from their ships. The technology appears to be, I'm not sure how to describe it, primitive, Vextar said firmly. You said so yourself. Look at them. It was true that the human ships looked like they had been built in someone's garage. The largest one, which they called the Wanderer, had patches of different colored metal covering its hull. Parts of it looked like they had been welded on by someone who had never seen a proper welding torch. Yes, sir, but the energy readings suggest otherwise. Some of these power signatures shouldn't be possible with their apparent technology level. Vextar waved a dismissive hand. Broken sensors. These creatures cannot possibly possess anything that would threaten Imperial technology. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to all ships. We will demonstrate the power of the Empire. Perhaps when these humans see what our weapons can do, they will reconsider their foolish defiance. The channel opened and Vextar's voice echoed through the fleet. All vessels, prepare to demonstrate Imperial superiority. Target the large asteroid at coordinates 77 Mark IV. Full quantum disruptor blast. The asteroid he had chosen was massive, easily the size of a small moon. It was made of solid rock and metal, the kind of celestial body that would take conventional weapons hours to destroy. Quantum disruptors charged and ready, came the reply from his flagship's weapons. Officer, fire. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the Imperial flagship. When it struck the asteroid, reality itself seemed to tear apart. The massive rock didn't just explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment there was a mountain-sized asteroid. The next there was nothing but empty space and a few glowing particles. Magnificent, Vextar breathed. The quantum disruptor was the Empire's most feared weapon, capable of breaking the bonds between atoms themselves. Nothing in the known galaxy could withstand its power. He opened communications to the human ships, expecting to hear terror in their voices. Instead, he heard slow, sarcastic clapping. Wow, came the voice of the human captain called Chen. You guys figured out how to break rocks. What's next, discovering fire? Vextar's yellow eyes widened. Did she just mock our most powerful weapon? I think she did, sir, his communications officer replied weakly. Another human voice joined the conversation. This one belonged to the captain of the ship called Defiance. That was cute, Admiral, really, very impressive light show. My 8-year-old nephew would love it. Your nephew? Vextar sputtered. Yeah, he's really into fireworks, the human continued. Though I gotta say, for all that energy you used, the cleanup was pretty messy. Just scattered particles everywhere. No style at all. Vexitar was about to respond angrily when something incredible happened. One of the human ships, the ugly one called Stubborn Mule, moved toward another asteroid. This one was smaller but still substantial. Here, said the voice of Captain Okafor. Let me show you how it's done properly. A small device launched from the human ship toward the asteroid. It looked like nothing more than a metal cylinder with some wires sticking out of it. What is that? Vextar demanded. Some kind of primitive explosive? Modified mining charge, Okafor replied cheerfully. We use these back home to clear obstacles from shipping lanes. The device attached itself to the asteroid and began to glow softly. And something impossible happened. Instead of exploding outward like any sensible weapon, the asteroid began to collapse inward. But it wasn't random destruction. The rock folded in on itself in perfect, controlled layers. When the process finished, where there had once been a chaotic asteroid, there was now a neat arrangement of sorted materials. Rare metals in one pile, common minerals in another, even the trace amounts of water ice collected in a separate cluster. There, Okafor said with satisfaction. Clean, efficient, and we got enough raw materials to build a new ship if we wanted to. Vextar stared at the display in disbelief. How is that possible? Trade secret, Captain Chen's voice crackled over the comm. But since you showed us yours, I'll show you mine. The Wanderer's external lights began to flash in patterns. Suddenly, technical schematics were being broadcast on all frequencies. Vextar watched in growing horror as detailed blueprints of the human ship filled his screens. As you can see, Chen continued, we're basically flying junkyards held together with duct tape and stubbornness. That big cylindrical thing there, that's our coffee machine. Takes up about 30% of our power grid, but priorities, you know? The schematics showed systems that made no sense. Power conduits that looped back on themselves. Navigation computers that appeared to be running on what looked like primitive gaming software. Weapon systems that were clearly improvised from mining. Equipment. But buried in all the apparent chaos were things that made Vextar's science officers gasp in amazement, Admiral, his chief scientist whispered. They have faster-than-light communication systems built into their hulls. Not just for messages, but for real-time coordination between ships. That's impossible, Vextar said. FTL communication requires massive installations. No one has ever miniaturized it to ship scale. And this, the scientist continued, pointing at another section of the schematic, appears to be a matter conversion system. They can literally turn energy into any material they need. Also impossible. Yet there it is, sir. apparently powered by their coffee machine. Captain Chen's voice interrupted their discussion. Oh, you noticed the matter converter? Yeah, that was fun to figure out. Took us 3 tries before we stopped accidentally turning our lunch into plutonium. You experimented with matter conversion using your food? Vextar asked weakly. Well, we had to eat something while we figured it out, Chen replied reasonably. Though I don't recommend the plutonium sandwich. Very crunchy, Commander Rodriguez's voice added. The radioactive afterglow kept us warm for weeks, though. Saved on heating costs. Vextar looked around his pristine, perfectly organized bridge. Everything was regulation standard, built to exact specifications by the greatest engineers in the galaxy. His ship represented thousands of years of advanced civilization. The humans had apparently built their ships in their spare time, using whatever they had lying around. And somehow, their ships were doing things his advanced technology couldn't. This cannot be, he muttered. Our instruments must be malfunctioning. Admiral, his weapons officer reported. The human ships are moving into a new formation. On the display, the 3 human vessels arrange themselves in what could generously be called a triangle, if triangles were allowed to have wobbly sides and uneven angles. Are they preparing to attack? Vextar asked. Unknown, sir. They're not powering weapons. In fact, I'm not entirely sure they have weapons. Of course they have weapons. All ships have weapons. Sir, according to their own schematics, their primary armament appears to be a modified asteroid mining laser, a cargo loading crane, and something they've labeled the emergency crowbar. Captain Williams's voice came through the comm system. Admiral, since you're so interested in demonstrations, how about we show you some of our technology? What? Vextar was rapidly losing his composure. Fair's fair, Chen added. You showed us how you blow things up. We'll show you how we fix things. One of the human ships moved toward the debris field left by Vextar's quantum disruptor. The scattered particles that had once been an asteroid were floating in chaotic patterns throughout the area. This is going to be tricky, Okafor's voice said. Rodriguez, I need you to reverse the polarity on your deflector dish. Which polarity? Rodriguez asked. All of them. That doesn't make sense. Since when has that stopped us? Vextar watched in fascination as the human ships began doing things that violated several basic laws of physics. Energy beams that curved in impossible directions. Gravitational fields that pushed and pulled at the same time. Electromagnetic fields that somehow sang in harmony. Slowly, impossibly, the scattered particles began to come back together. Not randomly, but in organized patterns. Within minutes, where there had been empty space and debris, a new asteroid formed. But this one was different. It was perfectly spherical, with a crystalline structure that sparkled in the light of the nearby star. There we go, Chen said with satisfaction. Much better than the original. That should make a nice addition to someone's jewelry collection in a few million years. Vextar stared at the display. His quantum disruptor had torn apart the atomic structure of an entire asteroid. The humans had put it back together and somehow made it better than it was before. Admiral, his science officer whispered. They just reversed entropy. That's theoretically impossible. 3 days later, Admiral Vextar received the worst news of his military career. High Command was not pleased with his reports about the humans. You allowed 3 primitive ships to humiliate the Imperial Navy? Grand Admiral Zixara's voice crackled through the secure communication channel. Her 6 eyes all glowed with fury and her tentacles writhed in agitation. Grand Admiral, you must understand, Vextar began. These humans are not what they appear to be. They are a weak species with primitive technology, Zixara snapped. Your own reports confirm this. Duct tape, Vextar. They use adhesive tape to hold their ships together. Yes, but there are no buts. You have brought shame upon the Stellar Dominion fleet. This ends now, Vextar's heart sank. The Stellar Dominion was the Empire's most elite battle group. 200 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Crewed by the finest warriors from a dozen different worlds. If High Command was sending them, it meant the Empire was taking the human situation very seriously. Grand Admiral, perhaps if we simply avoided this sector? Absolutely not. The humans will surrender or be destroyed. There is no third option. The communication ended, leaving Vextar staring at his tactical display. The 3 human ships were still there, apparently unconcerned about the massive fleet that was coming to destroy them. 2 days later, the Stellar Dominion arrived. Captain Sarah Chen was having her morning coffee when Lieutenant Park announced the incoming fleet. She looked at the sensor readings and whistled appreciatively. "Well, would you look at that?" she said to Rodriguez. "Looks like our new friends brought some backup." 200 ships, Rodriguez reported. Each one bigger than the ones we saw before. "And, Captain, they're not just regular warships." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Those are reality warping vessels. The energy signatures suggest they can manipulate space-time itself." "Fancy," Chen said, taking another sip of coffee. "What do you think, Patel?" Chief Engineer Patel's voice came through the comm from engineering. "I think they're compensating for something, Captain. All that fancy technology and they still need 200 ships to handle 3 humans." Chen grinned. "My thoughts exactly." Park, open a channel to Defiance and Stubborn Mule. Channel open. "Morning, Williams Okafor. Looks like we've got company." Captain Williams's voice was amused. "I count 200 ships out there. Think they're planning a parade?" "More likely a funeral," Captain Okafor added. "Question is, whose funeral is it going to be?" Before Chen could answer, the communication system crackled to life with an incoming message from the Imperial fleet. "Human vessels," came a new voice, deeper and more commanding than Admiral Vextar's. "I am Grand Admiral Zixara of the Stellar Dominion. You are completely surrounded and outnumbered. This is your final opportunity to surrender." Chen looked around the bridge at her crew. They all looked back at her expectantly. "You know what?" Chen said, standing up. "I'm getting tired of all these ultimatums. Park, put me through to their Grand Admiral." The main screen flickered, showing a massive alien with 6 glowing eyes and a forest of tentacles where a human might have hair. The creature looked like it could bite a shuttle in half. "Grand Admiral," Chen said politely. "I'm Captain Chen. Nice fleet you have there." "Very impressive. Did you polish all 200 ships or just the important ones?" Zixara's tentacles twitched. "You mock the Stellar Dominion?" "Not mocking," Chen said reasonably. "Just appreciating good maintenance. Those ships are really shiny. My compliments to your janitorial staff." "Silence," Zixara roared. "You face the most powerful fleet in galactic history. Ships equipped with temporal displacement cannons, reality disruptors, and consciousness scramblers. We can erase you from existence itself." "Ooh, consciousness scramblers," Rodriguez whispered. "That sounds unpleasant." "Temporal displacement cannons?" Chen asked. "You mean you can send things backward in time?" "We can phase matter out of the timeline entirely," Zixara said proudly. "Your ships will simply cease to have ever existed." Chen nodded thoughtfully. "That's a neat trick. Can you bring things back once you've erased them?" "Why would we want to?" "Well, what if you accidentally erase something important? Like your own fleet?" Zixara's 6 eyes narrowed. "That is impossible. Our targeting systems are perfect." Famous last words, Captain Williams muttered over the comm. "Enough talk," Zixara declared. "Stellar Dominion assume attack formation. Prepare temporal displacement cannons." Chen settled back into her captain's chair. "All right, people. Looks like things are about to get interesting. Rodriguez, remember what happened the last time someone tried to delete us from history? The time loop incident over Proxima Centauri? That's the one. Make sure our temporal stabilizers are running." "Temporal stabilizers online," Rodriguez confirmed. "Wait," Patel's voice came from engineering. "Should I mention that our temporal stabilizers are just the coffee machine running in reverse?" "Probably not," Chen said. "Let them figure it out themselves." The Imperial fleet moved into position, their massive ships forming a perfect sphere around the 3 human vessels. Energy readings spiked as exotic weapon systems came online. "Human ships," Zixara announced. "You are about to witness the true power of the Empire. Prepare to be erased from history itself." "Well," Chen said to her crew, "this should be educational." The Grand Admiral's voice echoed across space. "All ships fire temporal displacement cannons." 200 beams of energy lanced out toward the human ships. The beams shimmered with colors that didn't have names, carrying enough temporal energy to erase a small planet from the timeline. The energy struck the human ships and nothing happened. The Wanderer, Defiance, and Stubborn Mule sat exactly where they had been, completely unaffected. "What?" Zixara stared at her tactical display. "Impossible." "Fire again!" Another volley of temporal energy struck the human ships. Again, nothing happened. "Captain," Rodriguez said conversationally, "they seem to be trying to delete us from history." "I noticed," Chen replied. "How rude." Park, open a channel to the Imperial fleet. When the channel opened, Chen's voice carried a note of mild annoyance. Grand Admiral, are you trying to erase us from the timeline? The temporal displacement cannon should have removed you from existence, Zixara said, confusion clear in her voice. Yeah, about that, Chen said. See, we've tried time travel before. Didn't work out so well. So we built our ships to exist in all possible timelines simultaneously. That's not how temporal mechanics work. It is for us, Chen shrugged. Turns out if you refuse to acknowledge that causality applies to you, the universe eventually gives up trying to enforce it. Chief Engineer Patel's voice crackled over the comm. Did they just try to delete us from the timeline? That's adorable. I know, right? Captain Williams added. What's next, trying to turn us inside out? Don't give them ideas, Okafor warned. Zixara was frantically conferring with her science officers. How are they doing this? Unknown, Grand Admiral. Their ships shouldn't be able to exist in normal spacetime, let alone resist temporal manipulation. Then we'll try something else. All ships prepare reality disruptors. Maximum power. Ooh, reality disruptors, Chen said to her crew. Remember the last time someone tried to alter reality around us? The incident at Wolf 359? Rodriguez asked. That's the one. Make sure our reality anchors are secure. Reality anchors are just the hull plating, right? Park asked. Yep. Good old-fashioned human stubbornness built right into the metal. The Imperial fleet fired again. This time, the weapons were designed to alter the fundamental nature of reality itself around the target area. Matter should have transformed into energy, energy into exotic particles, and exotic particles into pure possibility. Instead, the beams struck the human ships and seemed to bounce right off. Impossible, Zixara shrieked. Reality itself should be rewriting around them. Captain Chen opened the channel again. Grand Admiral, are you trying to change the laws of physics on us? The reality disruptors should have transformed your ships into pure energy. Yeah, we get that a lot, Chen said sympathetically. But see, our ships are built by humans, and humans have this thing where we don't like being told what we can and can't do. That includes physics. Physics is not optional. It is for us, Chen replied cheerfully. We've found that if you ignore the rules long enough, they stop applying to you. By now, the Imperial crews were beginning to panic. Their most powerful weapons were having no effect at all on the human ships. Grand Admiral, one of her captains, reported, morale is dropping across the fleet. The crews are beginning to question whether our weapons actually work. Of course they work, Zixara snapped. They're the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Then why aren't the humans dead? It was a good question. Zixara didn't have a good answer. That's when the humans did something that broke what was left of Imperial morale. You know what? Captain Chen said over the open comm channel. Since you guys seem to be having trouble with your weapons, maybe we can help. Park, start playing some music for our friends. What kind of music, Captain? Something inspiring. How about the 1812 Overture? The version with real cannons? Is there any other kind? The human ships began broadcasting Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, complete with cannon fire, across all frequencies. But they didn't just play it through speakers, they used kazoos. The kazoo concert had been going for 20 minutes when an unexpected voice came over the communication channel. Excuse me? Said a nervous-sounding alien voice. May I speak with the humans? Captain Chen paused mid-kazoo solo. Well, that's new. This is Captain Chen. Who am I talking to? My name is Kliktar. I am a science officer aboard the Imperial research vessel Infinite Curiosity. I was wondering, how are you doing these impossible things? Grand Admiral Zixara's voice cut in angrily. Kliktar, return to your duties immediately. With respect, Grand Admiral, Kliktar replied. My duties include studying new phenomena, and this is the most interesting phenomenon I've ever encountered. Chen looked at Rodriguez, who shrugged. Why not? Rodriguez said. We've got time. Tell you what, Kliktar, Chen said. Why don't you come aboard? We'll show you around and you can see for yourself how we do what we do. I would like that very much, Kliktar said eagerly. Absolutely not, Zixara roared. No Imperial officer will set foot on those primitive vessels. Actually, Admiral Vextar's voice joined the conversation. I think it might be a good idea. We need to understand what we're dealing with. You are both fools, Zixara snapped. Maybe, Vextar said quietly, but we're fools who are curious about why our most powerful weapons don't work. An hour later, Clickter found herself stepping through the airlock of the UES Wanderer. She was a small, furry creature with large eyes and 6 delicate limbs that ended in surprisingly dexterous hands. She looked around the human ship with wonder and confusion. "This is not what I expected," she said. Captain Chen grinned. "Yeah, we get that a lot. Coffee? I don't know what that is." "Oh, you're in for a treat. Rodriguez, get our guest a cup of coffee. The good stuff." As they walked through the ship, Clicktar's amazement grew. Nothing made sense. Cables ran in impossible directions. Control panels were labeled with things like gravity adjuster and universal translator, mostly works. One section of the ship appeared to be held together with colorful tape. Is that your coffee machine?" Clickter asked, pointing at a massive device that took up a quarter of the engineering section. "Yep," Chief Engineer Patel said proudly. "Custom built. Takes 30% of our power grid, but it makes the best coffee in known space. Your coffee machine is larger than some ships' engines." "Priorities," Chen said simply. They stopped at a wall panel that was covered in duct tape and what looked like children's stickers. "This is our gravity regulator," Rodriguez explained. "It keeps us from floating around inside the ship." Clicktar studied the device carefully. "This appears to be a children's toy." "It started that way," Patel admitted. "But then we modified it a bit. How does it work?" "Honestly, we're not entirely sure, but it does work, so we don't mess with it." Clicktar pulled out a sophisticated scanning device and pointed it at various ship systems. The readings made no sense at all. "Your power source appears to be a perpetual motion machine," she said slowly. "Is that bad?" Chen asked. "Perpetual motion machines are impossible. They violate the laws of thermodynamics." "Yeah, we never really paid attention to those laws," Rodriguez said. "They seem more like suggestions anyway." They continued the tour, with Clicktar's confusion growing at every turn. The navigation system was apparently based on educated guessing. The communications array was built from spare parts of a dozen different civilizations. The life support system included what appeared to be actual plants growing in pots around the ship. "Those are tomatoes," Chen explained, when Clicktar asked about the plants. "We figured, why buy oxygen when you can grow it yourself?" "You're using photosynthesis for life support?" "Among other things. The tomatoes also make great sandwiches." They ended up in the ship's lounge, which was a comfortable space with mismatched furniture and walls, covered in pictures of Earth. Clicktar sat down in a chair that was clearly designed for humans and accepted a cup of coffee. She took a sip and her large eyes went wide. This is wonderful." "What is it made from?" "Coffee beans from Earth," Chen said. "Plus a few secret ingredients." "Secret ingredients?" "Stubbornness and caffeine," Rodriguez said with a grin. Clicktar laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You humans are very strange." "Thanks," Chen said. "We try. But I still don't understand how your technology works. According to every law of physics I know, your ship shouldn't be able to function." Chen settled back in her chair with her own cup of coffee. "Want the real answer?" "Please." "We never learned the proper laws of physics." Clicktar blinked her large eyes. "I'm sorry?" "See, Earth is a really chaotic place," Chen continued. "Magnetic field that flips around randomly. Solar radiation, gravity wells, asteroid impacts, ice ages, volcanic eruptions. The planet kept trying to kill us. That sounds terrible." "Oh, it was," Rodriguez agreed. "So we got really good at telling the universe no." "I don't understand." Patel's voice came through the comm system. "Think of it this way. Most species develop technology by working with the laws of physics. They figure out how the universe works, then build machines that follow those rules. Yes, that's how it should be done. But humans developed technology while the universe was actively trying to murder us," Chen said. "So we built machines that work by refusing to follow the rules." "That's impossible. That's what everyone keeps telling us," Rodriguez said. "But here we are." Clicktar looked around the lounge, taking in the impossible ship around her. "So your technology is based on stubbornness?" "Mostly," Chen nodded. "That and a lot of trial and error." "Mostly error. But how do you make it work?" "The secret is not caring whether it should work or not," Patel explained over the comm. "If you build something and expect it to work, then refuse to accept that it doesn't work. Eventually, reality gives up and lets it work. That doesn't make sense." "Welcome to dealing with humans," Chen said cheerfully. Clicktar spent the next several hours studying the ship's systems with the crew's help. Every discovery raised more questions. The faster-than-light communication system was built from modified gaming equipment. The matter conversion device was powered by the coffee machine and controlled by what appeared to be a smartphone app. "This is incredible," she said finally. "You've developed technology that's centuries ahead of anything the Empire has, and you did it by accident." "Not by accident," Chen corrected. "By necessity. When the universe is trying to kill you every day, you learn to be creative. But why didn't you share this knowledge with the galaxy? Why stay hidden on your one planet?" "Who says we stayed hidden?" Rodriguez asked. "We've been exploring space for decades. Then why hasn't the Empire encountered you before?" Chen and Rodriguez exchanged glances.
"Well," Chen said slowly, "that's because we've been avoiding the Empire." "Why?"
"Have you met your Grand Admiral?" Rodriguez asked. "She's not very friendly." "The Empire brings order and peace to the galaxy," Kliktar said, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. "The Empire brings conquest and oppression," Chen replied. "We've seen what happens to species that join your empire. They lose their independence, their culture, their freedom. But they gain security, advanced technology, protection." "Do they?" Chen asked quietly. "Or do they just trade one set of problems for another?" Kliktar was quiet for a long moment, sipping her coffee and thinking. Finally, she spoke again. "May I ask you something?" "Sure. What do humans want? What are you trying to achieve out here in space?" Chen smiled. "That's easy. We want to explore. We want to meet new people, see new places, learn new things. We want to find out what's out there in the universe. But that's all?" "That's everything," Rodriguez said. "Humans are curious by nature. We can't help ourselves. And if other species don't want to be bothered by humans, then we leave them alone," Chen said simply. "The universe is big enough for everyone." Kliktar considered this. "The Empire believes that order must be imposed for the good of all species." "Maybe," Chen said. "But in our experience, the best order comes from people choosing to cooperate, not from being forced to." "You think the Empire is wrong?" "I think the Empire is afraid," Chen replied. "Afraid of chaos, afraid of losing control, afraid of things they don't understand." "Like humans?" "Like humans." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking coffee and looking at the pictures of Earth on the walls. "Captain Chen," Kliktar said eventually, "would you be willing to teach other species how to do what humans do?" "You mean how to ignore physics and build impossible machines?" "Yes," Chen grinned. "That depends. Are they willing to learn that the universe doesn't always know what's best for them?" "I think," Kliktar said slowly, "that some of them might be." Outside the ship, the Imperial fleet waited nervously. They had no idea that their science officer was learning secrets that would change the galaxy forever. And in the lounge of a human ship, held together with duct tape and stubbornness, 3 humans and 1 curious alien were planning a revolution that would be fought not with weapons, but with coffee and impossible dreams. "Tell me," Chen said, refilling Kliktar's cup, "have you ever heard of something called academic freedom?" "No, what is it?" "Oh, you're going to love this," Rodriguez said with a grin. And so began the most dangerous conversation in galactic history. 3 weeks after Kliktar returned to the Imperial fleet, everything changed. It started with small rebellions across the galaxy. A mining colony on Zerion Prime suddenly declared independence, claiming their new stubborn field generators made Imperial weapons useless. A farming world called New Verdant announced they had developed impossible agriculture that could grow food in pure vacuum. Even the warrior clans of Zephyria began questioning why they needed the Empire's protection when they could build their own reality-resistant shields. The reports flooding into Imperial command made no sense. How were primitive species suddenly developing technology that rivaled or exceeded the Empire's own capabilities? Grand Admiral Zixara was about to find out. "Admiral," her communications officer reported nervously, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." "Earth?" "The human homeworld, ma'am. It's being broadcast on every frequency in the galaxy simultaneously." Zixara's tentacles writhed in agitation. "Put it on the main screen." The display flickered to life, showing a middle-aged human woman sitting behind a simple desk. Behind her was a banner that read, "Galactic Department of Impossible Things, Director's Office." "Greetings, citizens of the galaxy," the woman said with a warm smile. "My name is Captain Sarah Chen, and I'm the first director of the newly established Galactic Department of Impossible Things." What is she talking about? Zixara muttered. Over the past few weeks, Chen continued, we've received thousands of applications from species across the galaxy requesting information about human technology and methodology. We're happy to announce that enrollment is now open for our first courses. The screen showed a list of course offerings. Applied Stubbornness 101, Telling the Universe No, a Practical Guide. Advanced Duct Tape Engineering Coffee-Powered Physics. How to Build Impossible Things Lab Course. Introduction to Controlled Chaos Theory. These courses will be offered both in person at our new facility on Luna Station and via subspace transmission to any world that wants to learn, Chen announced. All classes are free of charge. Our only requirement is that students bring an open mind and a willingness to accept that impossible is just another word for not tried yet. Zixara stared at the screen in growing horror. She's teaching other species human technology. All interested beings can apply through our new communication network, Chen continued. Thanks to our friends throughout the galaxy, we now have real-time communication links with over 3,000 worlds. No more waiting months for messages to cross space. No more isolation. The galaxy just got a lot smaller and a lot more connected. The transmission cut to scenes from around human space. Massive construction projects were visible around Earth's moon, where something that looked like a university campus was being built in open space. Ships from dozens of different species were arriving and departing, carrying students and supplies. As you can see, Chen's voice narrated, interest in our educational programs has been overwhelming. We've had to expand our facilities 3 times just to accommodate all the applicants. This is a disaster, Zixara whispered. The transmission returned to Chen at her desk. Now, I'm sure some of you are wondering about the Zephyrian Empire's reaction to these developments. Let me address that directly. Chen's expression became more serious. For too long, the galaxy has lived under the assumption that there's only one way to do things. One way to build ships, one way to organize society, one way to explore the universe. The Empire has enforced this uniformity through fear and overwhelming technological superiority. She leaned forward slightly. But what if I told you that their technological superiority is an illusion? What if I told you that every weapon they've pointed at your worlds, every threat they've made, every demonstration of power they've shown you is only effective because you believe it should be effective? The screen split to show footage from the recent confrontation between human ships and the Stellar Dominion fleet. 3 weeks ago, the Empire sent 200 of their most advanced warships to deal with 3 human vessels. They used temporal displacement cannons, reality disruptors, consciousness scramblers, and every other weapon in their arsenal. The footage showed the Imperial weapons firing, then showed the human ship sitting completely unaffected while playing kazoo music. Their weapons didn't work because we refused to believe they should work, Chen explained. And that's the secret I want to share with the galaxy. The Empire's power exists only because you accept that it should exist. Zixara was frantically trying to cut off the transmission, but her technicians reported that it was being broadcast through the human communication network, which apparently existed outside normal space-time. Of course, Chen continued, the Empire might try to stop you from learning these things. They might threaten you, attack you, or attempt to impose their will through force. She smiled, and somehow that smile was more terrifying than any weapon Zixara had ever seen. Let them try. The screen changed to show real-time footage from across the galaxy. On world after world, Imperial forces were trying to suppress the rebellions, only to find their weapons suddenly ineffective against shields that shouldn't work, and defensive systems powered by impossible principles. On the mining colony of Zerion Prime, an Imperial battlecruiser was firing its main guns at the colony's shield generators. The energy beams were simply bouncing off a barrier that appeared to be made of crystallized stubbornness. On the farming world of New Verdant, Imperial troops were trying to destroy the impossible agriculture machines, only to discover that their weapons couldn't target something that insisted it didn't exist. Most shocking of all, on the warrior world of Zephyria, the native population had challenged the Imperial garrison to single combat. The Zephyrian warriors were winning using weapons that appeared to be modified farming tools, and a battle philosophy based on aggressive optimism. As you can see, Chen's voice continued, the Empire's response has been educational. Their weapons work perfectly fine against conventional targets, but they're having some difficulty with unconventional ones. The transmission cut back to Chen at her desk. But now she wasn't alone. Kliktar, the Zephyrian science officer, was sitting beside her. "I'd like you to meet Dr. Kliktar," Chen said. "She's our first graduate and our newest faculty member. She's going to tell you about her experience with the Empire." Kliktar looked nervous but determined. "For my entire career, I believed the Empire represented the pinnacle of technological achievement. I believed their weapons were invincible, their ships were perfect, their methods were the only correct way to explore the universe." She paused, gathering courage. "I was wrong about everything. The Empire's technology is advanced," she continued, "but it's limited by their assumptions about how the universe should work. Human technology is less advanced in some ways, but it's unlimited by their refusal to accept limitations." Kliktar held up a device that looked like a child's toy crossed with a scientific instrument. "This is a gravity adjuster I built using human principles. According to Imperial science, it's impossible. According to human science, it works perfectly because I believe it should." She activated the device. On the screen, objects around her began floating gently upward. "The difference," she explained, "is that Imperial scientists ask, 'How does the universe work?' Human scientists ask, 'How can we make the universe work for us?'" Zixara was now receiving panicked reports from across her fleet. Several ships were reporting that their own crew members were beginning to experiment with human-style modifications to Imperial technology. A few ships had actually improved their efficiency by ignoring several fundamental principles of engineering. "This has to stop," she muttered, but it was too late. Chen's image filled the screen again. "I have one final announcement. The Empire has been using a device called the Ultimate Reality Restructurer. It's their most powerful weapon, supposedly capable of rewriting the laws of physics across entire star systems." Zixara's 6 eyes went wide. How did the humans know about the Ultimate Reality Restructurer? It was the Empire's most closely guarded secret. "They're planning to use this weapon to force the galaxy back into compliance with their vision of reality," Chen continued. "They want to make it impossible for anyone to use human-style technology by literally rewriting the laws of physics to prevent it." The screen showed technical schematics of the massive weapon, along with detailed plans for its deployment. "But here's the thing about rewriting reality," Chen said with a grin. "It only works if everyone agrees to accept the new rules." She held up her own coffee cup in a toast. "So here's what I propose. When they fire their Ultimate Reality Restructurer, everyone in the galaxy should do the same thing we're going to do." "What's that?" Kliktar asked. "We're going to laugh at them," Chen said simply. "All of us together at the same time. 3 billion humans. And hopefully a few billion other beings who've learned that impossible is just another word for not tried yet." "You want the entire galaxy to laugh at the Empire's ultimate weapon?" Kliktar asked. "Why not?" Chen shrugged. "If enough people refuse to take something seriously, it stops being serious." The transmission was ending. But Chen had one last message. "To everyone watching this across the galaxy, remember that the Empire's power exists only in your minds.